Hey, so glad you are back for our weekly live. And today, what we are talking about is Ask Dr. Athy. So, I am here tonight answering whatever grief and children questions you might have. So, if you are here live, if you want to comment #live, or if you're watching the replay, comment #replay. It helps give our video some extra love and keep it boosted in our group. I had several people who submitted questions before tonight's live, and so I'm going to start with those questions. But if you are joining us live and you have questions, or through this conversation something comes up and you want me to expand more on it, or want to know how it applies to your kids and their age, please feel free to drop your comment in the chat, and I will be keeping an eye on the chat and answer questions that way as well. So as long as there's questions, we will stay on the live. So the first question, and I have it written off to the side, so I'm just gonna be reading it to you, was from Michelle. And Michelle was asking about her 4-year-old who was already trying to figure out his emotions, especially anger, before his dad passed away unexpectedly. And now he seems angry a lot. Any advice? So my response to that is, absolutely, our 4-year-olds are trying to figure out emotions. And so that's very common that they kind of overdo one emotion as they're figuring it out. They're navigating, what are the limits? When am I okay to act this way? There's a lot going on when you're 4. And when it comes to grief, so we add that grief layer on top. Anger for our kids often comes out as kind of the overarching feeling. And this is true for our 4-year-olds. It's true for our middle schoolers, our high schoolers. And honestly, it's true for us adults too. Anger is one of those emotions, especially in where we are raised and where we are growing up. For those of us in the US, like, anger is the prevalent emotion. So it's going to be the go-to. It's the easiest to express for most people, not for all people. Some people really stay away from anger because anger is scary. But for a lot of people, anger is acceptable. It's okay to be angry about a lot of things. Oftentimes, it's not okay to cry, or there are statements about, boys don't cry, things like that, that influence, is it okay to be sad? And when we're talking about 4-year-olds, because they're still trying to navigate those emotions, they're trying to take it in. They're watching us. So if we are saying things like, it's not okay to be angry, what are we giving them instead? Because angry is their emotion. That anger is a necessary emotion that they need to express. And so one of the things I would encourage all parents is, when your child is angry, what are you telling them? Are you telling them to sit with the anger? Are you telling them anger isn't okay? Or are you offering them some alternatives? So it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to kick the dog. But it's not okay to hit your sister. But it's not okay to throw your toys. And then giving them something that's acceptable. So we're not just saying the rule, no, you can't do this. We're giving them an alternative. We are giving them another way to express that. So when it comes to anger, anger is a physical emotion. it has movement. It has mobilized our system, and we need to release that energy. So when our kids are angry, we need to provide them with a physical outlet. Telling them to go sit down and calm down isn't helpful. I know a lot of schools, a lot of places think the calm down corner is the solution, but it's not. It can be after they physically release the energy, but immediately it is not the solution. So our kids need us to provide some places or activities that are okay for them to express that anger. So in my playroom here at my office, I have a bop bag, which is like a punching bag. We call it a bobo. And so they are allowed to punch the bobo. Again, physical movement, but they're not hitting somebody. It's a specific target. Maybe at your house, punching a pillow is acceptable. Maybe using bubble wrap. Kids love bubble wrap, but maybe bubble wrap is for when you're angry. So you can stomp on it, you can tear it, you can twist it, you can pinch each bubble one at a time. Lots of physical movement there. Maybe having a basket with magazines, newspapers, scrap paper, where they physically tear the paper. Again, this is physical movement where I am getting that energy out. I am releasing it. The other part of that is following up with them and talking about earlier, it was okay that you were angry. It wasn't okay that you threw a toy at your sister. It wasn't okay that you wanted to scream in my face and say these things. Again, we have that conversation after they've calmed down, not in the moment when they're feeling all of this anger. And as parents, we tend to want to teach. We want to teach our kids, is it okay, not okay? How do we talk about it? But in the moment, if our child is drowning, they're drowning in the ocean of the emotion, now's not the time to teach them to swim. I'm going to repeat that again. If your child is drowning, at that moment is not the time to teach them how to swim. They need you to throw the life preserver. They need you to throw the thing that simplifies their emotion, that helps them understand what they're feeling and what to do with it. So, Michelle, I hope this answered your question. If not, please post under the live or in an additional message in our group so I can answer further. So the second question we had was from Katie, and Katie said, today my daughter came home from school. She was very upset. Something had happened where another child had said something about her dad, and she won't tell me the details. She says she doesn't want to talk about it. I gently tried to bring it up with her again later, and she still refused. I worry she'll keep things in order to protect me. How do I get her to open up more? This is such a common thing. And for many of us parents and the parents who are in this group, we want to attend to grief. We want to do things differently and have the conversations that maybe didn't happen when we were a kid or didn't get addressed. And so I think it's fantastic that you are wanting to know how to help her and also figure out, is this something to do differently? And sometimes with our kids, when they are talking or not talking to us, they need to feel a sense of control. And so in that moment, her being upset, if you were able to stay calm and present and allow her to have those feelings, then later, like you mentioned, that you went back to her and tried to have the conversation again, even though she wasn't interested, you respected her control. She wasn't at a place where she was wanting to share it. And again, is that because she was trying to protect you? Or is it once she calmed down, it bothered her, but it just wasn't something she wanted to talk about? And so when it comes to our grief kids, we are planting seeds. We're planting the idea that we're here and that our kids don't have to take care of us. Our kids don't have to protect us emotionally, and that we are here to be their rock, their foundation. And if they need some help in calming their emotions, we want to be that person for them. But sometimes they're just not ready to talk about it. And that's okay. Again, as a parent, and speaking as a parent myself, it can be really hard when our kids don't want to talk to us. And I know for myself, in having a degree in this, being a counselor, it's really hard not to say to my kids, wish you knew a counselor, wish you knew somebody who knew something about this. But that's not what they need to hear in the moment. They don't need to hear about our expertise or how we're willing to help. Sometimes our kids need to hear that we trust them to come to us when they're ready. We don't just step away, never saying anything. We're still laying the foundation, saying, it's okay if you're not ready to talk about it now. Just know that I'm here, or when you do want to talk about it, I'm ready. I'm willing. Again, we're not leaving that up to interpretation. We're not just silently standing in the background, hinting and hoping that they pick up on our willingness. We are actually saying, I'm here. I'm willing to talk about it if you want to, but I'm going to trust that when you're ready to talk about it, we will. Again, it leaves nothing up to interpretation. And Katie, I hope that answered your question. If not, please feel free to post in the chat and we can talk further about that so I can make sure that I answered your question. Allie asked, do you have any suggestions for explaining to a toddler why she'll never meet the woman in the picture, which is her grandmother who died before she was born? I'm waiting to ask her, following her lead, not sure how to talk about death in general with a toddler. Yeah, thanks, Allie, for your question. That is one of those things that I would tend to go on your gut. If the person in the picture, which I'm going to assume is your mom, if not, same applies if it was a mother-in-law. But if that were your mom, I'm assuming that you miss her and would love to talk with her and want to share her with your daughter. I think it's perfectly acceptable to have those pictures and talk about her. Talk about what she meant to you. And your daughter's going to take in some of them because she's a toddler, and others of it she may not quite put together. This isn't somebody I physically know. The other part, and this is the part that some people may agree or disagree, I believe from birth to age 5, our kids are more intuitive. They're more in touch. They're more open with spirits, and it is very possible that your mother has already visited with her. that she's a familiar person and is around. Um, I know, again, some people are going to have different opinions on that, but there's a lot of research that kids from birth to 5 are more open to that experience. Once they get a little bit older, they tend to not believe, or they doubt, or they have their parents' opinions on, ghosts aren't real or those kinds of things. But there are many, again, much research out there that shows kids are open to that experience. So it is very possible that she already has a relationship with your daughter. But I definitely think sharing your mom with her from day one is a great thing. Talking about, this was my mom's favorite recipe, or this was a blanket from my mom. Again, it just helps facilitate that relationship, even though our person isn't physically there. The other thing is, when you're talking about toddlers, it's being very concrete, matter of fact in the language that you use. So if she does ask, "Where's grandma?" it's responding with, "Grandma died," or "Grandma died before you were born." And that's a really hard thing for adults to use that word, to use the word died or dead, because it just sounds so just a punch to the gut. But our kids need to hear that very concrete, very specific word. There's no room for misinterpretation there. And I do offer, and for those of you who are interested in you as well, I have a grief guide that talks about what to say and what not to say, and talks about some of those specifics on grief appropriate language, death appropriate language, so that you know what to say and what not to say, or the best way to say things. And I'd be happy to send that to you if you don't already have a copy of that. So anybody who is interested in that grief guide, if you want to post guide, I will make sure that I send that to you over Messenger or email, whichever you prefer. So, Allie, I hope that answered your question. If you have any questions on that information, please let me know. Or if I didn't answer all of your question, I would be happy to talk further with you. So for those of you who are here, even if you are catching the replay later on, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will be sure to respond to those Facebook comments after the live. I'm just going to check the chat and see if there are any comments that haven't come up. Okay, and I don't see any other questions, but like I mentioned, anybody who is catching the replay or watching the live, if you have any questions, or if these conversations sparked another question or comment, please feel free to comment in the chat, and I will take a look at those later this evening. For those of you who are interested in some additional support, if you want to comment #help, I will send you my calendar link where we can have a free 15-minute grief to healing conversation, where I will address grief and provide you with the #1 strategy for your household. All of the information that I talk about, I prefer to give very individualized and specific help. I can give very general grief advice, but the truth is, grief is so individualized that instead of saying, "Here, try this, here, try this, what about this?" I would much rather have a conversation with you and provide you with a tip, a trick, a tool that is going to address grief in your household, that's going to be effective for your family, for your household, for your dynamics. So if you are interested in that, like I said, mention #help, and I will reach out to you with my calendar link. I hope all of you have a good week, and I will see you again soon.